In this video, we're going to talk about how to add parameters to the shared parameters folder file, and also to the Revit families in accordance with the ASHRAE documentation for families. So we're going to start by adding to the shared parameters file, and I actually have a motor, fan motor family open at this time, and so I'm going to go up here to shared parameters, and I already have a lot of these shared parameters added into this just for some time saving and going through these videos, but it's important at this point to use groups, and I will show you these groups as you drop down parameter groups. And those parameter groups are done by, air handler data, cooling coil data, and so on. And this is definitely not all of the categories, not all of the parameter groups. There's many more, and we are not going to touch on all those. But I'm going to show you really quickly how to make a group and how to add parameters to that group. We'll start with adding a new group, and it's as simple as hitting add group, type your group name in there, whatever you might want to make that group name, and just say OK. And then when you're done with that, it will bring up these groups here. And since we're in a motor, I'm going to go show you the motor data ones. And these are all from the ASHRAE spreadsheet. So those are all in there, and I'm going to show you, I probably won't actually add, but I'll show you how to add a family, all right, and add a parameter for this family. So we're in the motor data group, and now I'm going to add a parameter by hitting the add parameter button. I'm going to give that parameter a name, and then here is where you're going to have to dig and at least be somewhat knowledgeable of Revit. There are several different categories here, or disciplines, to choose from to make your parameters, whether you're in structural, HVAC, electric, or piping, or energy. It's important, if you're going to use Revit to do any kind of calculations, that you get these category or these disciplines correct, and then under each discipline there are different options for the actual type of parameter. As you can see, for the common ones you have text and that kind of stuff, and I can kind of drop down here and give you an idea what kind of parameters are here. Not all the time do these make sense. Revit does not necessarily word these the way you think they should word, describe these the way that you think they should describe them. So be careful. Do a little research if you have to. That's a lot of looking and digging to get these correct. But I'm just going to add a common one, and I'm going to go a common text one. And what we would do for these groups, if you notice my previous ones, is Revit will not let you have two parameters with the same name. You can't do it. So to keep these straight, if you'll notice that for the motor data group, all the parameters within the motor data group start with motor data and then an underscore. If you do a regular hyphen there and you do any parameters with calculations, that's going to kind of screw up those calculations, because they look at that as a minus in the formulas in the families. So we would just simply add a and then whatever the name of the parameter is. And as you can see, I've already added all the ones from the ASHRAE spreadsheet, and already are in here. So that's how you actually add a parameter. You hit OK, it'll show up there. That's how you add them to the shared parameters file. Your company should have a location where everybody in the company is pointing at the same shared parameters file. Having shared parameters is important because it will not schedule correctly if you do not have shared parameters. There is a way to do it. It's not a suggested way. There's other ways to actually get it to schedule, but Revit doesn't suggest you do that. It's kind of an emergency fallback, and I'm not even going to get into that. But this is so that they'll schedule correctly. If somebody's not pointed to this shared parameters file, it can actually mess up your schedules for that. If they print the project, it can actually mess up the schedules because the parameters won't be correctly shared parameters. So now I'm in the motor family. We've got all our parameters added to the share parameters file. So now we're going to go in here and we have our family open, and now we want to add parameters to this family. So we're looking at this family, and we're going to go up to family type parameters. There's only one family type in this family. And as you notice there are several groups in here of parameters, like the equipment type data is up in here, and there's other stuff in here, but I've already added most of the parameters in here. But you can notice that there's the motor type parameters are already added in here with the information. But to add a parameter, and this is the manual way to add a parameter, there are programs out there that you can set up with your shared parameters to push all these parameters in here at the same time. Not the data, but just the parameters themselves. And it will save you a whole bunch of time if you use those. I'm not sure what that was, but we're going to leave that alone for now. Anyway, to add a parameter, you simply go in here and go down and say new parameter, and then share parameter and select. And this is going to give you the option to be able to select whatever one you actually want to add. So I know speed's already in there, but we could do speed, and it'll give me an error saying that it's already in here. But you can actually separate these out by putting these in under a group. This group doesn't really make a difference unless you're trying to group these together in a way that they're separated. So the motor data is in one group. So the type data is in another group, and so on. But unfortunately, you cannot add groups. So you have to choose from the groups that Revit has already put out there for you. And then you just simply say, okay. There are two options here. There's a type option, which allows you to lock this down to just type, so that when you put this in Revit, this data will not be editable in your Revit project. It is editable in this family, where you could come back and edit the family. Use type when you want to lock this down to just whatever this type is. Use instance for things like tags and anything that you might change from one. Like, say if I have multiple if I have multiple fans with multiple motors, the things that you actually want to be able to change in the Revit model, the actual where you're actually doing the work, you want those set to instances. The things that will always be the same, that are part of this motor, and every motor that's exactly like this will have the same data. It's better to use the type parameter, and then when somebody adds another motor, all that information will already be there. Only stuff like the tag or the identification or things like that do you want to use for instance. And so see it. It says up. It's already in there. But that's a simple, easy way to do that. It's a little time consuming to add these one at a time in these families, but like I said, there are add-ins, and the company I work for actually uses an add-in that will allow you to push multiple parameters in at one time. And I'm just going to show this to you. I'm not even going to show you how to use this, but just be aware that there are applications and add-ins for Revit that will let you do this. Unfortunately, most of them are pay and not free. I've not really found a free one that works very handily. This one actually allows you to share information. You know, it allows you to save your parameters and groups and then just select and apply them. But if you're doing a lot of these, then a program like that makes sense. If you're not doing a lot of the add-ins, then it really doesn't. So basically, that's how parameters work from adding to the shared parameters file to adding them into the actual family. Thanks for watching the video. Hope that helps.